welcome to Why the Cast Man.
Why the Cast Man?
The Cast Man. Why? Why the Cast Man?
Why?
We're going to find out on this final episode of Why the Last Man. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin. Yes, we are answering the question why.
Yes, this is the season finale and potentially series finale of Why the Last Man, Season 1, Episode 10, Victoria. Obviously, at this point, we don't exactly know whether it's going to get picked up somewhere else, but this is certainly the final episode on FX on Hulu. So, if you haven't watched it, go watch it, because spoilers ahoy, but the broad overview of what you need to know is that everything essentially convenes, or mostly everything convenes, on Yorick's location. Yorick is having a good old time at this prison colony turned utopia.
Utopia. Idyllic, yes. Slightly triggering, ready to attack at a moment's notice utopia.
Sure, there's that. And the Amazons convene there. There's a huge fight in the while that's going on. Yorick tries to get away with Sonia, who he has, mind you, slept with. We'll probably talk about that at some point. And he comes face to face with Hero, who lets him go, stays with the Amazons. At the end of the episode there, Nora ends up killing Roxanne. We had speculated in a bunch of different directions here, but it doesn't exactly happen how either of us expected.
No.
But ultimately, Nora has taken over the Amazons at the end of the episode. 355, Allison, and Yorick are headed to a new location thanks to the Culper Ring, who has given them some supplies and directions. We have seen 355's old boss in the Culper Ring, who also has Beth and Jennifer. They headed off, and they were immediately captured by those people. So
Immediately.
No delay. I don't even think they made it out of the house necessarily. So we're going to get a couple of reunions by the end of the episode. And the last thing that I'll mention is at this point, both Yorick and Hero, based on some hearsay and incorrect information, think their mom is dead. So
yes.
If this was to continue, Yorick was about to find out that is not true very quickly. Hero... ... But before we get into it, why don't we talk about the season as a whole? Obviously, I'll just throw out there, knowing this may not continue, very frustrating ending. Like, not their fault by any means, but this is not like, I feel very complete. If this doesn't continue, I'm going to feel okay. No, it's 100%. So many things left in the air. We do get some emotional resolutions here and some big moves forward. And ultimately, I feel so much better about this series as a whole in the final episode than I did in the beginning episodes, but very annoying.
Well, I mean, I agree with you, obviously, from a story point of view, but taking this season, if we were to just take this season as a one-season show, as it may very well be, I thought this was a really effective way to wrap it up, especially the sections in here where we flash back to the Brown family having dinner. And we see them at the top of the episode all together, and from the jump, like super happy. And then we see all of the pieces sort of spiral out as we learn more about the family. They're falling apart over the course of the episode as members of the family are converging on each other. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we just get Hero and Yorick getting together, but it's on the table that that Jen and Yorick are going to be.
Oh, you guys are friends? You're allowed to call her Jen?
Jen Brown. I'm friends with the fictional character.
Jenny.
I mean, when it comes to a fictional character, I've been hanging out with
for
Jen.
10 hours.
For 10 hours. That's a friendship. If we were to ever count the hours we've spent together, Alex, and I'm not saying we should do that because I don't think we should.
No, we definitely should. But just real quick, who are you better friends with, me or fictional character Jenny Brown?
Oof, right now, Jen.
No.
But she's not here, so it's sort of like, grass is always greener. Mm-hmm. If I was doing, I have a podcast with her, obviously too, where we actually talk about you.
Oh,
yeah.
You recap my life.
Why the Zalb, man?
I gotta subscribe to that.
You should. We need subscribers. Let me be honest. It's a very niche podcast. But anyway, what I was saying is, we have, as the family splits apart in the flashbacks, and we have the convergence coming together here, I thought this was such an effective way of combining all the themes of this season and this series, and coupling that with the revelations of the Amazons, a group that we've been scared of, Roxanne, a villain that we've built up over the course of so much, and to have them come into town and be so thoroughly wrecked by these people that we are made to feel are vulnerable, because they're living in this idyllic world, and they just wreck the Amazons. I was like, oh, what a great turnaround, and a great way to show that in the real world you can't be all noise like they have been so far. And just great walk away information from this season. And even though, to bring it back to your question, even though it wasn't satisfying, if this is the last episode from just the straight up story, I do think this is a great one season series of television, even on its own.
Yeah, totally fair. I think I am really just talking about from a plot perspective, because nothing is finished there with any of these characters. But you're absolutely right from the emotional perspective, and in particular, not to keep harping on these flashback scenes, but they tie so nicely with Nora's speech at the end of the episode, which tease up the name of the episode, Victoria, that her whole thing is her name was Victoria. She didn't like it. She didn't like the name she was given, so she went by Nora for most of her life, but ultimately she's owning it again. She's becoming Victoria. She's saying she's Victoria. And this contrasts with what we see in these dinner scenes with the Browns, where they're walking on eggshells around each other. They're not being their true selves. They're not being honest. When Hero is honest, when they ask her who you're dating, and she says, oh, it's this guy. He's married. He has a kid, so we're not spending a lot of time together. It's mostly very casual. That's exactly the sort of thing you can't say. She later on reveals that she was vetted for 9 hours when Jennifer was elected or going to be elected. And all of this, ultimately, the thing that they're leaving us with here that really, it seems to me, the series has been about all along, is about who we are up front and who we actually are inside, and how this apocalypse ultimately has revealed a lot of these cracks and truths.
It's easy to sort of fake your way through your day or your week or your life when the world is chill. But when when everything gets messed up, when everything gets upended, you can't get away with that. Like, people don't tolerate that kind of subterfuge and just like bullshit. It'll get you killed in this world if you're not being like, if you're like, I'm pretty good with a gun, and then a second later you're like, I have to shoot this, and you're bad at it. That's it. But as we see with the Amazon, it's like, oh, they did train some, but they don't have the chops when it comes to all the garbage Roxanne was putting in their heads, because they didn't actually do that.
Yeah. And it's immediately clear as a viewer what's going to go down when that happens. Just Roxanne talking about like, yeah, let's just go in and fire like Yosemite Sam just straight in the air. Pew, 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 pew. And that's her whole plan there. They go in, and the second, I don't know the name of the old lady who essentially runs the town, but she comes out and she's like, ugh, I don't know if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Why don't you just back off? And you're like, oh, right, they're all criminals. You don't know this yet. You didn't scout it out. You didn't prepare. This is not going to go to the way that you think.
Well, and even beyond that, because I don't think they're all like marksman criminals or like, warriors in that way. But I think they're aware. What we learned sort of over the course of the episodes, hearing how they built their society, is they're aware of not being free and not being in control of their environment. So I think despite the chill utopia they had with like, it was like an adult wine and cheese party for a lot of the episode here. And I was like, this is especially contrasting with the like kids pool party that the Amazons are throwing. I was like, where they just get drunk and sleep on the boogie boards. I was like, ugh, gross. You're going to wake up sleeping in a bathing suit or wet clothes.
So prudy. You're going to be so prudy.
Oh, yeah. The smell in that room.
I got to be honest. I think that's why they didn't win, is because they were so pruny. Like, they were just a bunch of raisins coming into
squeak,
town.
Squeak, squeak. They couldn't keep their fingers on the triggers. But what I was saying is, despite the outward look and the way they wanted to enjoy themselves, the women's prisoners were like, no, we're going to make sure we are locked down. We want to keep this, and they are prepared. Of course they're prepared. They know what it's like to not be in control of your world, and they just the way they wreck the Amazon. And even 355 comes in like, I can't believe these people are attacking this way. She's like rolling her eyes, and then on top of it all, the rest of the people there are hard harder than she thought they would be.
Well, but there's also that front where not only do you get the Amazons not knowing that these former criminals are going to completely destroy them, but them taking out 355. That's another moment as a viewer where you're like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry this is about to happen to you. 355 is going to completely destroy you at this point. I thought it was interesting that she went back, actually, 355 in the middle of this to, I assume ostensibly to help Yorick and get him out, but it also seemed like she had an investment in this community at this point as well and was trying to help them at least a little bit.
I think so. I think I see two motivations, or a split motivation for her there. She's been having so much struggle, just trying to, in the quiet moments, since they've been at this utopian park or whatever you want to call the community there. And when she smells a fight, she's like, "Oh, now I can just be myself and go back there." Because she picks up the gun, finds her spot, and she's just like, she snipes. She helps them out, snipes people. I think she's like, "Oh, this feels natural. This is my programming kicking back in." And then secondarily, I do think part of her programming sort of falling away in this, especially the last two episodes, she's been so nice. She's been friendly. She's been opening up. I believe it. It's not like she's putting on an act like it was in the first 5 or 6 episodes. And I think she does care about these people. She knows Yorick cares about these people. And I think in general, she's like, these people could use my help, and I can easily fix this and be out of this.
Let's jump over to something else, and maybe I'm forgetting something for the comic. At this point, I think all spoilers are, off. You can talk about whatever because who knows what's actually going to happen. But ultimately, in the comic book, Yorick and 355 get together. That's the big romance at the end there. That's what comes together. I think the show is heading in a very different direction because Allison in 355 is great.
Yeah.
Like, I really like this flirtation understanding that they've struck up. I don't know if 355 is necessarily in that direction yet. Certainly, Allison's pretty horny all the time, so I don't think she would object to hooking up with 355. But the thing where they have this whole conversation about what has 355 tried so that she doesn't sleepwalk, and the only thing I think worked was a sandbag, right?
Sandbag.
Yeah.
Attaching a sandbag to her arm.
But then ultimately it's Allison just sleeping next to her that keeps her calm.
Holding her. I thought it could just be viewed as calm. That's what she needs. She lost her parents. She just needs somebody to love her. But I certainly think there's potential romance in the future there. And if the show was to continue, I think that would be an exciting and interesting new direction to go in. I do too. And even beyond that, I would say, I bet they could play with almost a love triangle here, with 355 being at the center of it, and her feeling shifting maybe. And like, I don't know how real any of it would be, but when you get 3 people together and there is that sort of flirtation on the table amongst at least some organization of them, like that's a great situation for like rivalries, like someone winning, someone losing, someone feeling great, someone feeling bad. And then if there's any further steps sexually, it could open up the whole relationship in a cool way.
Absolutely. So that was very good. Really liked Allison in this episode as well, just as usual. Her whole thing about, what was the animal she was talking about? I wrote it down, but I'm missing. I don't remember. There's some animal she's talking about is going to die out, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Her mentioning the different pace that animals are going to die out, and she just sort of has that running tally in her head of like, well, we lost that. That's their life cycle done. They're not coming back, which really does do a good job, not to jump over to this, but does a good job of giving a ticking clock in terms of their mission with Yorick, that it's not just about the human race. It's about literally the entire ecosystem of the planet if they can't figure out what's going on, potentially.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's jump over and talk about Yorick, though, the last man, and what his arc was like in this episode. How'd you feel about it, and how'd you feel about where he ended up at the end of the season?
Well, to see in the flashbacks him being this, like, if there's, having done comedy for so long, if there's anything worse than someone describing an improv scene they did, it's someone describing a magic trick they want to do. And that's what we get at the top of the episode, talking about this, like, Elvis Presley's unborn brother thing, and like, but I love the line, "Why does fate choose one man?" That he says, and then come to find out, fate chose him. And when we jump to the present, he is sort of wrapped up in something that is small potatoes, much like his magic trick. He's like trying to figure out if he should be with this woman who sort of wants to be with him. I love the line from her. So what's your plan? You're going to be a real Johnny Appledick?
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, so funny. Yes. And you see him sort of being like, am I that? And he is, in most people's eyes. Something we should talk about later is Kimber specifically. But we learn that he's only ever slept with Beth. Now he's in the situation when Sonia opens up to him about about killing someone. That just absolute honesty, I think, flips him. He's like, it's on. They have sex. And then he is hit by reality in a huge way, with her dying, them having to run, seeing Hero, hearing his mom's quote unquote dead. And I think that hardens him. I think his arc, to say it all, his arc for the season is like, hey man, this is reality now. And I think that's a good arc for him.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit, I think in the last episode, about him being in this semi-utopia, that it allowed him to fall back on his pre-apocalypse habits, that he was 10 to 15% getting to a point where he was understanding, okay, this is what reality is, this is what's going on, and this just let him fall back. This let him be goofy Yorick who has no responsibilities again, can wander around, talk about his magic tricks, just have a good time. But like you're saying, all of this death and destruction, and seeing Hero reject him at the end of the episode ties into that overall theme of who are you really? And I think what Yorick doesn't know is who he is really. He's been protected by his parents. He's been protected by society. He's been protected now by 355 and certainly to an extent Allison as well. And now he's been protected by Sonia and all of the women in this community. And that's all gone. And him sobbing in that silo and ultimately saying to 355, no, this needs to be a partnership. I need to learn to fight. I need to learn to protect myself.
Train me.
Yeah, exactly. That's him saying, no, I need to find out who I am, actually, beyond whatever I've been my entire life. And that's exciting. That's a potential exciting place he could have gone going forward.
100%, and hopefully we'll get to see it. But I love this moment as well. Like 355 could have easily been like, ugh, this guy's crying in a silo right now, and I have to deal with this. And instead, she opens
fill
up
the silo up with his tears.
He's making salty beer with all this wheat here, oatmeal, overnight weepy oats. She opens up to him, and she's like, here's when I was in a dark place where you are right now, and I got out of it, and now I'm a badass. And I think he's like, I want that too.
Well, I think there's part of that, but there's also a reversal of the roles in a certain way where obviously this changes very quickly once they get the signal for the Culper ring, but 355 has realized, oh, I'm free. I don't have my responsibilities. The president is dead. I have no orders. There's no Culper ring. I can do whatever I want at this point. And versus Yorick, who is realizing, oh, wait, I do actually have this responsibility to the world. Maybe I am Johnny Appledick, or maybe it is something else, but whatever it is, I need to step it up here. So I love the idea that in this scene, they really meet somewhere in the middle, and it solidifies their partnership and relationship going forward.
Of course, joining a new pantheon of American folk heroes, Johnny Appledick, Paul Get It On with his
Big Blue Fox.
Big Blue Fox, exactly. Babe, the Big Blue Fox.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Fox,
having sex.
Fox, F-U-X.
Yep.
Yep.
Big Blue Fox.
I don't know. You're putting me on the spot here.
We should write children's books.
Oh, we should. Yeah. Paul here? I don't know. I don't know. I'll work on that one.
Paul right here.
There we go. That's. Okay.
I'm having a hard time naming other American folk heroes. Let me be honest.
That's the big problem here. Not the puns about sex. It's coming up with American folk heroes.
It is funny to think at any point in your life where you're like Paul Bunyan, real man, yes. Real giant who wandered around America.
He had a large ox. It was blue.
And it's also funny that we are taught when we're kids, like, You see that apple tree? This one guy planted it. He planted all these apple trees.
But that's
he
true,
would walk
right?
around. Yeah.
Yeah,
When I was a kid, I was like, that sounds like a fun job. Is that available to me? And it turns out it's not a job.
Oh, well, there are people who plant orchards. They're kind of like the original Johnny Appleseed. Actually, the original Johnny Appleseed was William Shakespeare.
Wow. Oh,
He planted ideas in our heads.
Oh, that's really cool. He still is. Did he wear a pot on his head as a hat?
Yep. Yeah, when he was writing, it
Was that
reflected
part of-
the ideas back into his head.
Was that part of Johnny Appleseed, or am I just making that up?
The pot on his head? No, Are you thinking of Forbush Bad from Marvel Comics?
We know more about this show
I know
than we do about America.
What's his name? Daniel
Boone.
Daniel Boone. Or,
Oh, of course, Davy Crockett, or
Davy
as we
Crockett.
call him, Davy Fuckett.
Yeah. Ah, nice. Okay, I think we could wrap up this section and move on and talk about Kimber instead. So, yeah, Kimber has a sex dream about Yorick and decides she is going to find the last man on Earth and fuck him. That's her plan.
And it's especially, I mean, Kimber's a character we got to see so much of, and she just has this small section really in this episode, but I really liked this. We just get the apex of her arcs all this season. She's fetishized the idea of having kids again, to the point where she's having sex with someone she hates, Yorick, and wakes up as like Christine, who is pregnant, and they're going to have like the craziest road trip you could imagine as they try to find Yorick for purely sex.
Did you like the idea that Kimber and Christine were in a barn? They woke up like in a manger, basically, with their miracle baby that's coming into society. I thought,
it was idyllic. They had the best little wake up moment, I think, of anybody.
Yeah, I love that moment with Kimber. She has become completely unhinged here at the end of the season, which feels very close to her ultimate form. I'm curious if this was to continue, if we'd start to see any sympathy for Kimber again, because there was certainly a point towards the middle of the season where it felt like, oh, she's gaining a little bit of her humanity. She's understanding this world a little bit more. But these past few episodes have completely sent her off the deep end.
Yeah. And it's good. I like that arc. I like all these characters' arcs. I think unless you have more to say about Kimber, I do want to jump back to Nora for a second.
Go for
Victoria. It is wild to me. She's so on board in the beginning of the episode with this plan. Like, she's fully committed to this bullshit that she's spun. And she's like, we are going to take down this village and take control of it or whatever. Like, she's the villain, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know about that. I think she, admittedly, is completely focused on the safety of her daughter. That is the only thing that she cares about, is creating a world not even necessarily for herself, but to keep her daughter alive. There's this push and pull there where sometimes it does come down to her and she starts to be a little selfish there. But I think ultimately that's what she's always looking towards. And her being so relatively erratic in terms of her loyalties come down to thinking a couple of steps ahead in the chess match. Like we talked about with Roxanne, she's always now. She's like, I've got this plan. I'm going to execute it. Here we go. We're in it. Now I'm going to keep doing these other things that I'm doing. Like, she doesn't think through quite enough. She has like one-step plans, but Nora can see a couple of steps in the future. She isn't always in the power situation to be able to get there, but throughout the episode, she's on board with Roxanne. As soon as the tide starts to turn, she's like, I got to shut this down somehow. I got to keep my daughter alive and by extension, myself alive. And so that's why she surrenders there. I'm surprised they just let them go back to the pool party, but they go there. And then ultimately she sees that Roxanne is going to be a liability to her daughter's survival. She's already won over Hero. And that's really all she needs to turn the rest of, frankly, the sheep in the Amazon over to her side. So she knows, okay, this is a move that I can make. This is what I can do. This is how I can get these people in this situation to keep going forward.
Interesting. I had a very different interpretation of that.
Okay.
I don't think she only cares about her daughter. If she cared about her daughter, the scene where Mackenzie gets her period for the first time, Nora's like, "Yeah, you're a woman now." It's sort of pretty melancholy about it, like she's not trying to help her per se. And then they're talking, and she's like, "Oh, you sound like Roxanne," and she's like, "Roxanne sounds like me." That to me is about her. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm powerful here. The episode is about her taking power. In the situation where all of the Amazons are getting killed, she's there she does, save her daughter from being hurt there, but she's just, trying to figure out the way that she can get up. It's not about getting safe. Like, she could have easily made a case with the community there that her and her daughter are like, hey, we got caught up in this, can we come stay here, and maybe found her way in there. But instead she goes back, she kills Roxanne in front of her daughter. Didn't have to do that. They could have walked out of there. Roxanne didn't want her there anymore. And then she has a speech about not just like, we don't need that bullshit, we need to be real for ourselves, and we can actually live here and build a society like we just tried to ruin. No, she's like, they will fear us. She wants to dominate.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with her daughter. It is not as safe for her daughter to become an Amazon, a group of Amazons going out there and killing people. It's much safer if they were to build a community there, but she chooses the other path.
That's fair. I do think maybe there's a midway point, though, where over the course of the episode, she is in this mode of thinking ahead, in protection mode, but ultimately reaches her breaking point, particularly because of Roxanne and the way that Roxanne is acting, where she's just not going to take it anymore. She's done with it, and she's decided to be true to herself, like we've been talking around per the theme of the episode.
Right, but I think maybe true to herself is someone who is not good. Like, she's right before she kills Roxanne, she's in the bathroom trashing it. It's like, what? Why are you doing that? Is that just all of this personality shifting going on in her, and she's just like fighting it?
Oh, she just doesn't like bathrooms.
Yeah, she's like, we should have cleaned this before we left. We're irresponsible pool guests. Everybody pee in the pool. But I just think she's more of a sociopath, or she has these tendencies where she's only looking out for herself, not even her and her daughter, but herself.
Potentially. I feel like I'm just a little bit hesitant to call her a sociopath, because I think the thing that we're supposed to take away from here, again, is about becoming your true self and who you are meant to be. In this case, she has always listened to everybody else's orders, always supported other people, always been the voice behind the voice and never the one in front. But ultimately, that isn't what she's wanted her whole life. That's just been what she was told, what she was allowed to be, what she had to become to survive. So her becoming Victoria again and leading the Amazons, maybe that isn't her final form. Maybe she still has places to go. But potentially, maybe that's her overcorrecting in terms of, I was in this one place that was behind. Now I'm going to be out in front. Will she always be that person in front? Is she always going to be the person in charge? Or is there a happy medium? We don't know.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about Hero as a person at where we end up here? Because Yorick very quickly is like, my sister's brainwashed. And I was like, you got all that from your 4-sentence interaction with her? Okay.
I don't know. I'm surprised. I know this is almost exactly how it goes in the comic book when they meet up, but I am surprised that Hero didn't go with him, because I don't know what Kool-Aid Hero is drinking at this point. Like, I don't know exactly what she needs out of this situation necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know either, but it does feel like she still hasn't defined who she is. All the flashback scenes, which again I thought were great, especially for Hero, seeing her being this agitator in the family, someone who is harmed by her family in their interactions across the board. But she's able to see her dad is having an affair when no one else does, or no one else is paying attention. Like, she is observational. She can see the truth in people, but she can't find it in herself, is maybe the takeaway, or she just can't get on even ground. And it feels like with the Amazons, she did feel powerful. She did feel like she was on even ground, and she's clearly not ready to give that up to go run around with Yorick. But now, is she hearing Nora/Victoria's speech and is like, oh, I want what she just decided to have?
Maybe. I think that's definitely possible, because like you're saying, Hero has not stepped up in any way necessarily. She is almost doing the opposite of what Yorick is doing. She found her comfort zone just following Nora/Roxanne's orders, having people tell her what to do, having people value her as well, which we see in the flashback scenes. There's that awful moment where she asks, "Oh, what am I in your escape trick, Yorick?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, you're there too."
Ugh.
Ugh. And that's sort of what it seems like she's been her entire life, is she's the other woman in that relationship. She's the other child in her family. She's not the leader of the Amazons, so she's still on the side there. She's still kind of in that position. She's still in that second position. So I don't know. I think her journey is definitely not done. And it's interesting the place she ends up, but certainly of all the characters, it's perhaps purposefully inexplicable exactly what her growth path has been over the course of the season, you know?
Well, let me ask you, and maybe it's pertinent to it, and I'm surprised we didn't find out what happened here, but right before, in the flashback, right before my girl Jay, the President Jay, gets up to leave the dinner, she whispers something in Hero's ear, and we don't hear what it is. We just see Hero's face. What was that, do you think? What was the idea?
Man, I don't know. I assume that was the moment that led to their break, right? Like, we're supposed to take away that was the thing that led to Hero not ever wanting to talk to Jennifer again.
Potentially, I don't know. I mean, I can't believe we didn't. I thought we were for sure at the end of the episode we were going to see the reverse shot and have Jennifer Brown saying something like, I love you, Hero. I know you're struggling right now," or something positive, or something like, you need to take a break from this family," or something.
Maybe she said something like, "You need to pay the check."
Yeah, this is on you.
Yeah, this is on you.
It's
You
your
pick
turn
up
to
this
pick
one.
this up.
Yeah.
No,
I don't know.
Hey, could you box up the rest of my? I just really want that pasta. It was really good. It was sort of a crab. It was like a crab in it.
What's your name again?
I'm so uncomfortable asking this after everything that's happened.
So weird.
What's your name?
You've been my daughter for a while, but what's your name? I don't know.
Can't be Hero. That doesn't make any sense.
That's crazy. That's a crazy name to name a person. I don't think it matters to me that much what she said so much.
Oh, well, I think it's huge.
Yeah.
If Jen Brown and Hero is like one of the central relationships of this season for sure, then that feels like a absolutely defining moment for them.
I don't know. What was why am I blanking on this? The Bill Murray Scarlett Johansson movie.
Lost in
Translation. There we go. It's the same thing. You don't need to know what they whispered at the end of the movie. You just need to know the intention of that scene. And here, I think that was the break between them. Whatever they said, that is why Hero does not want to go to Washington, doesn't want to see her mother, doesn't seem to react that much when she seemingly finds out that Jennifer is dead, and reacts more when she's telling Yorick, if anything. And I believe that was more, I took that as more about her relationship with Yorick than a relationship with Jennifer. Yeah. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. We'll find out in 10 years.
Yeah, nice. One other thing to say about these flashback scenes, like every character sort of lays out the thing that heightened after the apocalypse, after the pandemic, to make them into the person that they are now. Like Hero being an agitator, and then she's where she is. Beth sort of being a little bit like, we need to change the system, and then she's like suddenly in this terrorist organization that takes down the Pentagon. I thought that was a cool way of sort of seeding the people that we know they've already become. And
honestly, it was nice seeing that scene also to remember that, oh, right, Beth does know Yorick's parents had met them, because it honestly threw me a little bit when she came back and Jennifer instantly let Beth into the Pentagon. But seeing this retroactively made that okay, because it reminded me, oh, they were dating for a really long time. They had a relationship. They treated her like a daughter. Everybody knew each other. So it made a lot of those actions that we've seen in previous episodes make more sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. One last thing to talk about, maybe. How do you feel about the Culper ring becoming the power, like the government, maybe? and becoming like basically the central focus of what would have been a season 2, or maybe will be a season 2.
I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of a TV show, frankly, to see that. Like, certainly conspiracy elements. It's interesting. Like, they got the trackers. They're badasses. Of course you want to watch that on TV. I think there's a lot of different things to explore in the world, and focusing in on the Culper Ring doesn't necessarily negate all the other things that are going on there, like Kimber and Christine, like everything that's going on with the Amazons and Victoria, I guess, now. Those are all things that could exist together, and you can add more things on there. We haven't gotten into, there was only a little hint of this, but what's going on with the Israelis, which is a big deal in the comic book as well. So having this spy ring in the center of a lot of other elements certainly gives you, I think, a good hook going into a season 2, but it doesn't need to be the only thing in a season 2.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
That all said, who knows if we're going to get a season 2, if ever. Maybe this is the last episode, maybe not. Regardless, thank you all for listening along. I will tease that we are going to have at least one more episode of this podcast with a special guest. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming into your ear holes pretty soon. In the meantime, if you want to support us, patreon.com/comicbookclub. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Crowdcast and YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about Y the Last Man. iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show. At Comic Book Live on Twitter, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. And we forgot to say who's the man.
Yeah, we got to say who's the man, but it's good. We got the business out of the way. Now we can just take it home.
Business in the front, party in the back. That's what I always say. Who was the man in this episode?
I think I'm going to give it up for 355 in this episode. Like, I really like the character, the person that she's become, sort of coming through all of this. Well, she's been able to be nice and sort of start to build a family again, the family that she lost, that she talked about in the car accident with Yorick and 355, while at the same time maintaining some pretty solid badass credentials.
For second episode in a row, I'm going to give it up to Nora /Victoria, I think, because she went from a character that I did not know the purpose of the show to one of the central characters in the show over the course of 10 episodes. And that's some really impressive plotting to make you care, or at least to make me care about a character that I could have cared less about in the first couple of episodes. That's great. And her evolution has been fascinating to watch. Certainly it can go in a bunch of different directions like we've been talking about, but it's cool. It's interesting, and it feels very different.
And just one last thing, shout out to the show and everybody that worked on it. I know it's a bummer news that y'all got. I hope it comes together. But I really enjoyed this show. I'm excited to go back and reread the comics just to get more of this world. So it was great. Great season.
Totally agreed. And for all of you out there, once for all, let's answer the question, why the cast, man?
This is why the cast, man.